episode 39.
Yeah. Welcome to Unbound, Unplugged, episode 39. The topic for today we actually want to get into, we've been off topic, is basically just having a conversation about the industry and where we see the industry heading or where the trends are going, and whether it's positive or negative, and maybe some key takeaways that everyone can kind of have around it. And I think the biggest takeaway for everyone is we all have influence over this, and our behaviors and our actions are what going to kind of dictate how much value we get out of where the industry goes. Whether it's us as coaches who are like our careers are tied to this, or whether it's us as athletes where our hobbies, our health, and a lot of our discipline is tied to it. In terms of your opinion, I mean, we've been in it for a while, and we're in it literally 24/7.
Yeah.
What's the biggest change you have kind of noticed in the last 3 years since post-COVID?
Look, I mean, I think you nailed it on the topic where you said trends, and I'm going to eliminate the ends and put just trend in there. What I mean by this is social media can be quite an interesting world where we're now surrounded by the top 0.1% of the genetic pool. So from our industry point of view, every time you go on your phone and you look up a fitness influencer, they're normally going to be shredded. They can deadlift 400 kilos. They're normally just amazing at everything.
The pool's also expanded. So that 1%, so there used to be like a reality of 1%, and now there's also a false reality of 1% because of filters and lighting and everything that people use. What people don't realize is like people don't look like this all the time. So a lot of influencers we follow, they go and they peak for an event or something like that, and they pay a photographer $1,000 to go and take all these shoots, have all these different outfits, and they just use that for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it's the same photos, like I said, and like it's. And the reason why I use the word trend is obviously because people relate that to unnatural. They relate to enhance. They relate it to, cheating, essentially. And not saying that every person out there is unnatural, but one of the interesting things is one of the things Michael actually told me a few days ago was he goes onto people's Instagrams. If he likes them, he scrolls to their first video. If they have a first video that's cringy, that's, got them deadlifting 100 kilos, that's got them doing something that's, not extraordinary, it's just regular and average, and then you scroll back to their latest video and it's the same lift, but it now technique looks perfect, like their physique is amazing, like everything's on point, their knowledge is better, the way that they produce and create videos is better. Like you could see a clear progression and see the relatability in that person. Whereas if their videos, like their channel starts with them being genetically gifted, having a six-pack abs, like, bench pressing 180, like how can you relate to that as a person, as an average person? How can you look at that and be like, yes, I can be like that? First thing that you'll see is I will never be that strong, I will never be that fit, because there's no clear pathway of how they got there. You just assume that they were born that way, that they came out of their mum.
There's no process, there's no timeline.
Yeah, it's just like
behavior change.
They just came out of their mum's vagina and started fucking benching 180. Like it's sadly that's what people see. One of the things I pride myself on is I do have all my original videos on Instagram and on YouTube, which you're more than welcome to go watch for your own fun and purpose.
I don't think anyone should ever delete them.
No, I think there is things that I've removed, but not the original videos. There's things I've removed because I've reposted them later, but the original videos are still there. So like the OG videos, there's like cringy ones of me in my garage. There's a video of me, the first ever video I did on YouTube about Josh Bridges, and like I'm reading off a script and I am doing poorly. It is cut so obviously, like my hair looks ridiculous. I look back at it, I'm like, how I spoke into the camera, how I flowed, like I don't know why people watched it, but then like you start somewhere. That's the whole idea. It shows the confidence I had then to the confidence I have now. I mean, realistically, like over that period of time, yeah, I've gotten stronger and fitter, but it's not like an unnatural amount. It's not like I went from deadlifting 180 to deadlifting 300. But it's a clear progression, and it's a good amount of time too, like 7 years or something. So it gives people that perspective. And a lot of the people in our industry, sadly, that's not how they work. They have these like, you know, cookie cutter programs that they create to make you lose fat in 6 weeks or whatever, and then they pull their waist in on their photos, or, you know, they have this like, oh, you could look like me if you just follow these 3 tips, and they take anabolic steroids. So it's like the genuine like person on.
It doesn't stop there. Like, it's hiring Airbnbs and taking video shoots of a fake lifestyle. Like, it's literally artificial reality in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Which is dangerous. It's very dangerous, because like technology is just a tool. Like, it's not, it has nothing to do with the human experience of life. So like, it's just something that we get to use to make things easier. And if it's creating false realities and it's having all this effect on emotion and decisions, I suppose, is the biggest part of it. It can get very scary. It can get very, very negative very quickly. And I think as people in influential positions, we have to be aware of this. It's our responsibility to understand that. We don't get to just go and create this fake stuff.
Yeah.
There has to be a responsibility for it. Like, as a business, you have to have your insurances, you have to have your liabilities, you have to have your education, you have to have everything in line. You don't get to just go and open a business. Because if you go and you basically influence someone in a negative way, you're now liable. And the problem is social media is so far behind on that in terms of like the legal system keeping up. But that doesn't mean it has to be. I think if everyone just took a little bit more responsibility for what they put out there and a little bit more pride in what they put out there, it would be a much better place. Yeah. Because what it does create, and what I really like about it, is you've heard me say this before, I'm very pro, if you ask me, I would say no government. All right. Why would I say no government? Because it allows for competition. So if you didn't have someone overseeing and controlling everything, you would basically, you just end up with healthy competition. All right. So you end up with everyone just being able to go and produce, let's say everyone goes and makes shoes. All right. But no one has a monopoly. Everyone has an even playing field. It's just going to be whoever makes the best shoes wins, whether it's the best because it's the most comfy for its price or whatever. And that's what you want, because it's going to push the needle. So everyone is now going to have to increase their the quality of what they do. When we get this scenario where it's like that, then it doesn't really matter what's out there. Like, it can just be rubbish, and everyone perceives it as, oh, well, everyone else is doing it, so like I must go do this.
Yeah.
It's just, it's very scary when you sit back and think about where it's going.
Yeah, and there's 2 sides of it too. I look at like a lot of male influencers, and especially if they're like into like the cooking side of it, like they're fitness influencers that show meal prep and things like that. A lot of the male ones will be wearing a stringlet or be no shirt on. They'll be flexing in the video, like, you know, flexing their bicep while holding.
Just done a pump session before they do it.
Yeah, and then they're doing that while holding whatever item they're trying to get you to make and selling their program, whatever. From the female side of it, they'll normally start a video with them showing their ass, or like their ass is facing the camera and they're kind of like turned around, was like, oh my God, my glutes are destroyed.
It's sexualized.
Yeah. And it's like, and there's nothing wrong with either one of those, but it's like, if that's the kind of culture that you're getting, then you're getting females who want to buy into, you know, having that kind of lifestyle where they're growing their glutes. But what they don't understand is, A, that girl's glutes, like you said, might be pumped. Same with the guy's biceps. And B, maybe they're genetically more gifted in that area where they're going to develop more size in their glutes. Some women will develop it slower than others. I'm not saying it's impossible, but people generally go towards what they're good at. You know what I mean? Like, for me, growing my chest has never been hard. I don't really, like, now these days I do a lot more bench, but I've always had a big chest regardless. If I went along and started doing more bench press and making videos about how I'm selling my bench program because my chest is so big, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to buy that program because that's how he got his big chest. But in reality, like, I got my big chest by just genetics and luck in a lot of the cases. Like, I still did the same amount of work as everyone else in CrossFit, but my chest grew, you know, where someone else's legs might grow or someone else's booty might grow. And it's just, they've just played into what their body has naturally gone towards or they've done better at. Because when you're good at something, you generally want to do it more. Inherently, in the short term, you see faster results. So it makes you more likely to stick to it or be more consistent at it. Of course, that will slow down at some point, but that's the buy-in for a lot of people. And a lot of these fitness influencers will buy into what they're good at. If they can lift heavy, they'll sell, strength programs. If they look good, they'll sell physique programs. If they are, good with their words and good with their knowledge, they might sell online programming. But at the end of the day, how they sell it is always going to determine whether they're someone you can trust or someone you can't. I always say to people, find people you can trust, your influencers. So, for example, like you like this person because they give a lot of good knowledge and feedback, and everything you say kind of aligns with what you think, or, goes against it depending on what you're looking for in that person. Then do what you said, Michael. Scroll down, see if they have a first video or a video of lower quality with maybe a bit poorer explanation, or maybe there's a version of themselves that is lesser than what they are now, so that they're genuine. Once you kind of
it's up to you to do your research, and it's not just online. Online obviously is a big space that's growing very quickly at the moment, but we were talking about it during the week where the same concept is just, it's across industry, it's across the entire industry. So everyone's competing for the same pool, no one's growing the pool. So if you look at the statistics, we don't have more people going to the gym. We have less people going to the gym. We have people being less active, but we have a population that requires more physical activity than ever before. And we also have more gyms than ever before. There's a problem there. And that's the problem we need to all come together and fix. Doing the things we're doing at the moment is not fixing that problem. Like, how are we getting these people who actually need it to come in and go to the gym?
Yeah.
We don't, because and you look at where the money goes, like just follow the money. So we were talking about this with some of these new fit outs and some of these, we're going to throw people on the bus here, but that's because it needs to be an open discussion. You look at the new franchise change, you look at when PLC came out, you look at HIIT, you look at EMF, you look at all these brand new franchises. What do they sell?
New and shiny. They sell that, like, oh, look at this awesome equipment.
It's the iPhone strategy. It is literally the iPhone strategy. So it's like, I'm going to give you something new and shiny that doesn't inherently give you any more value than what you probably already have.
Yeah.
Right? What you probably already have already serves its role, but I'm just going to offer you something newer and shinier. Like, we were talking about it. There is a neon sign on the back wall that probably costs about $15,000, if not more. What does that do for any member that goes to the gym?
It gives them crippling eye pain, that's for sure.
What value does that provide to anybody? Like, that's branding, and it's a nice to have. At the end of the day, it is just a nice to have. But what value does it provide to someone who needs to come in and work on discipline?
Yeah.
Like, who needs to come in and be consistent with training? Who needs education around movement? Like, who needs help with nutrition?
Imagine the dumbbell rack you could have bought with that. Well, 1 to 60, I reckon, all the way up to 60 kilos. Like, imagine that. Like, that would be more beneficial. Like, because people can actually use that.
And it's a conversation that needs to be had, because it's like, it's not sustainable. We look at, you guys get sick of me talking about it all the time, but you look at what's happening with the economy and where everything is going, and none of this is advice, but anyone that listens to anyone that's talking about it, it just keeps getting changed, where it was like, oh, okay, interest rates are going to come down in 2024. Now they're talking about interest rates not coming down to 2026. And whatever ends up being, like, you look at history, it could be anything. It could be a decade before we fucking get any change. Like, but at the end of the day, what is going to have to change is going to be consumer behavior. So we have been in a scenario where everyone has been like, oh, I have the iPhone 10. The 11 comes out. I don't need the 11, but I'm going to get the 11.
Yeah.
I don't need the 12, but I'm going to get the 12. Now I'm going to get the 13. What's going to change? That's not going to happen anymore. People are going to wait until the 15 or the 16 comes out. Then they'll get the 16. They're going to wait till another 2 years before they get their new car. And those are things that you're going to see shifting. And in our industry, I hope we just plan ahead. I hope people start to realize that. Like, it's really what people now start looking for is they actually start looking for what is valuable. All right. So community is a huge part. Like, coming here and being able to, you think about it, like going to a gym that has rusty barbells, like it's got old dumbbells, it's a little bit less expensive, but it's got good people. Like, people are consistent, they're disciplined, they're supportive. Like, it doesn't have all this fancy, sexy shit. That's probably where most people need to be.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the funny thing is when you go to I have nothing wrong with normal gyms. Normal gyms are great, especially if you're someone who's into bodybuilding or powerlifting. Like, it has all the facilities that you require to do that successfully. Even some cases, strongman and Olympic lifting. So like going to a Globo gym, massive gym space, lots of people, normally lots of staff too. And it can be an easy way to buy into a lot of that stuff because it's usually very inexpensive. You feel like, everything's kind of easy to use. It's a good buy-in for a beginner. But
is it though? Like, I mean, I know you get deals, but when you actually sit down and work out the numbers, you're still paying over $1,200 a year.
Yeah, it gets expensive.
You're
if
still
you get
paying
locked in too.
$150 to join. You're still paying for key tags. You're still paying for other things. Like, it's in their business model. It's just marketing.
Yeah, it just sounds like it's cheaper. $20 a week. That doesn't sound too bad when you're locked in for 18 months. But it's more from like this perspective of like, okay, machines are easy to use. You don't really have to think too much. Like, especially if you're starting off and you're just creating that discipline, like you're saying, that consistency. But then it gets to a point where you exceed that. Like you can squat your body weight. You can deadlift 1.5 times. You can bench 3/4. Like you're starting to progress well. Like your cardio's improved. You're showing up 5 days a week. Now you need an added challenge, whether it's a skill challenge, whether you need to push the needle on your strength, whether you need to try harder things in your conditioning. But at those spaces, those coaches are only taught so far, not excluding everyone. Some people would obviously have a bigger knowledge base that train out of those places, but generally to find specific like skills and people with more knowledge depth and things like that, you normally have to go to something smaller, like you said, with the rusty barbells, with the less plates, because that's just where those people live and like work out of generally, like a lot of the time, or they own their own studio. Like a lot of the successful weightlifters and strength coaches that I follow, they own their own studio. It's specific to PTs and their clientele and their videos that they do. It's not open gym. They don't just let people in. Their athletes go there and they go there. That's it. It's not open to the beginner. You know what I mean? So if you want to get really good, you go there. But it's like, it gets to a certain point where you're training at your gym, you're in an environment that is normally isolated. Like, even though there's 1,000 people in World's Gym at one time, how many of those people are talking to you? How many of those are you competing against? Unless you're coming with friends, it's 0. Like, so you're just there for you. And unless you're Matt Fraser, like, how are you going to use that to your advantage? And I think something I heard, there's the thing that's on the same level as an anabolic steroid is a training partner that's competitive. And I think that's pretty cool. Like, the whole idea of that, if Michael chucks on 105 on his bar, I want to chuck on 105. I don't want to be left behind. I'm like, damn, he's progressing. Or I at least want to, like, if I watch him do some skills, he's like banging out double under crossovers and I can't even do them yet. What am I going to do? Spend the next 5 to 10 minutes after every single class trying to beat his ass? Like, I'm not going to sit back and be like, damn, he's improving way further than me. Oh, well, sucks to be shit then, you know what I mean? Like, if you're competitive, like, you will rise to that level. You won't fall. But when you're training alone all the time and you're not seeing other people's progression, like, you're not going at the same time as everyone else. Like, if you show up to your Globo gym, you see one dude every single day. He's on the same lifting platform. He does the same training. He does the same workout. He's improving. Yeah, you'll get the benefits. You'll be like, wow, he's doing this, this, and this. He's super consistent. I can follow that. But 9 times out of 10, that just doesn't happen. Like, there's so many people there, you won't even notice the person. So that's a starter. Most people have their headphones in, so they're not open to conversation anyway. And then it's like, you're just not in the environment where people want to express their ability. They want you to improve and you want them to improve, and vice versa. So like you said, the community involvement and the community component is so important when it comes to progression, because, most of the time, like, you'll hear members in there, they will tell other members to stop being a pussy, or to, like, put some more weight on the bar because they know they can lift more.
They know they're holding back, and they know they can. Yeah.
You don't get that when you train alone. Like, you just don't get that. Like, unless you have a one-on-one coach that's training you and is telling you the same things. Like, it's just not a reality of, like, individual training. And that's one of the things, like, once you get to that certain point, like, do you keep the driving instructor when you've got your full license? No. Like, you exceed that. You've used that knowledge. You go somewhere else to get a higher form of training. The samurai always looks for a greater challenge. He doesn't just stick around at his dojo kicking everyone's ass and is like, damn, I'm the best samurai here. Because he wants to prove that he's the best samurai in Japan. He wants to go find better samurai. He doesn't want to just stick in the same area and be like, hell yeah, my dick's big. Like, compared to who? A bunch of the pipsqueaks he versus? Like, it's like the big brother destroying the little brother until the little brother gets better.
It is, yeah. And even on that topic, like, it's an interesting concept because you're talking about the driving instructor, but you think about your first car, like your first car you get, it's got 150, 200,000 Ks on it. It's just a cheap thing. And it's like a lot of those gyms that we're talking about, like the coaches with the 150,000 hours, like they're at those gyms. They're not at the Globo gym.
Yeah.
So it probably is better for people to almost reverse the process. Because I know you're talking about machines and you're saying like it's a lot easier for people to use, it's lower skill, and it is. Like, don't get me wrong. But when you go to some of these gyms now, is it really? Like, you look at, now they're belt driven, now they're playing around with all these different angles, now there's all these different pin loaded mechanisms. Like, it's just become complicated anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, what was designed for that, now someone goes in there and they have no idea what to do.
Yeah, they're like, what's this machine? It's got, like, I've actually had, like, embarrassingly enough, I've gone into some of those Globo gyms and jumped on a machine and been like, I have no idea how to use this. Like, I'm reading the instruction that it says, I still can't make sense of it. I'm like, what is this machine supposed to work? Like, the contraption's too confusing because it's so high tech and advanced. It's not obvious what you need to do, and that's the issue. If it's not obvious, then it requires someone to teach me. But it's a machine. Like, it shouldn't. In my head, I'm like, it shouldn't be this hard. Like,
yeah,
what?
The machines were designed to be accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And they're designed for rehab, so they're not necessarily designed to have the coach there.
No.
And it's just interesting seeing how it's gone, because it's kind of gone away from that now.
Yeah.
It's just become overly complicated for everyone, and I think people need to realize that, like, hey, you probably just need to go to these other gyms, learn how to squat, learn how to deadlift, learn how to move your body through space, and then you can go play around with some of that stuff if you want to go do it.
Yeah, because the machines are great if you are already high level. You might need some specific isolation work on certain muscle groups that have imbalances or that are weaker, that aren't supporting your major lifts or your movement and, cardio machines, etc. One of the things that I was playing around with, which is the big thing that I push back on people who like, I want new and shiny, is back in the day, CrossFit, when it first started, it was just an online program. It had 1 or 2 boxes around, but it was pretty much very unique. Most people did it online from their garage, from a Globo gym, or from another location or park or something like that. Then when CrossFit became a little bit more popular and boxes became more available, your opportunity to go to a box was a little bit easier. So you going from training, doing wall balls and bloody mountain climbers in your backyard, now goes to a gym with, a rig, a wall ball target, or at least a wall that you can throw a ball to, like actual barbells with actual plates that are colored versus your black ones that you have at home. Like, that was a huge upgrade. I know for me personally, that's how I started. I started, with an ab mat and a 16 kilo kettlebell at home, doing bloody circuits that I saw either on CrossFit.com or maybe some other functional fitness influencer. And then when I got to a gym, it was like, wow, this is so cool. Like, it was rugged. It was 2013. It was like, like I tore my hands the first day. They put like what I considered was battery acid on it at the time. I think it was beta-alanine or something, or I don't know. That's not beta-alanine, but you know what I mean. They put something on it, but I was like, it stung. I was like, and then they wrapped it in strapping tape and sent me back out.
The betadine?
Beta-alanine. That'd be cool as well. That'd probably give me the same tingles. But you know what I mean? Like, that was new and shiny. And now CrossFit gyms are expected to have brand new equipment. They're expected to be air conditioned.
Gyms in general. And it's like, it defeats the point of it.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, people who come from an environment that is come from a Globo gym that's air-conned, come to a CrossFit box that's not air-conned.
But I and I'm sorry if I annoy people, but I'm going to annoy people. If you work in aircon, all right, so you have an office job, you're in artificial environment all the time with the aircon, you need to be in a scenario where you don't have aircon. Like, the best thing for you to do is not go to a gym with aircon.
Yeah.
Like, be exposed to the opposite. Because reality is, when you go to the beach, is there aircon?
No.
When you climb a mountain with your kids, is there aircon? Like, when you go do Tough Mudder, is there aircon?
And that's funny because I remember you brought that up. It was like, people who like doing these Spartan races and Tough Mudders, normally the same one that goes to the gym and runs on a treadmill in air condition. Like, how is that preparing you for climbing over a barrier or scaling a rope or getting over a net wall with mud and rain and all this other elements that you're not used to training to. It was the David Goggins methodology of when it rains, you go for a run. When it storms, you go for a run. When it hails, you go for a run, because they're the times that no one else is going to be running. Like, train when everyone else is going to be inside enjoying the lemonade and sitting on the couch. And like, that same mindset still applies. It's just you don't have to be so extreme. But funnily enough, on the other side of it, all the people who do those hard manual labor jobs, you never hear any of them complain about the heat when they come into the gym. They're almost like, oh, thank God I'm out of the rain, or thank God I'm not in the sun anymore. Like, it's good to be under a cover. And it's kind of cool because our gym here, we're very luxurious, is what I would say, for a CrossFit gym. We have an area upstairs that can be aircon during summer. And it is nice to come up here and like do some bodybuilding in the aircon. But at the same time, like, all the fun stuff needs to be done downstairs. You can't clean up here. You can't snatch up here. You can't jump on a rig up here. And that's cool that it's like that. Like, the boring, like, simple stuff is upstairs. The fun, hard stuff is downstairs in the hard environment. The boring, simple stuff is in the boring, simple environment. So it's interesting how that's kind of a little bit of a shift that I just thought about then. Like, you come up to do easy stuff in an easy environment. You go down to do your hard stuff in a hard environment, and that inherently makes those hard things easy, and the easy things even easier, sadly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be very interesting to watch where the industry goes, because it's become all about smoke and mirrors, and no one, like, I noticed this when I started doing merchandise. All right, like, for me, I'm very factual and I'm very analytical, and I want things to be like, hey, you like something, why do you like it? Like, oh, it weighs this much, it's made of these materials, it's got this seam line, not because it comes from Lululemon. So it's like, when someone said to me, oh, I just like Lululemon stuff, I'm like, you haven't even taken the time to work out why you like the tights. Like, how much nylon, like, how much cotton, like, what's the bandwidth, like. And it blew my mind. Like, it blew my mind that people were like, this is what I value, but I don't even know what it is. I just could not process that. And I had to come to the realization that most people just don't understand what is valuable to them.
Yeah.
And they're never going to take the time to work it out, which is why they struggle to replicate. So it's like I always know exactly what shirts I'm going to buy. Like, I can go in and I can just buy it because I know what the cut is, I know what it's made of, and I know what I'm looking for. So I can look at the tag and be like, yep, that's going to work. I don't even have to try it on.
Yeah.
But I at least took the time to work out what I actually liked about the thing, other than the brand or the look. As where I feel like that's where the fitness industry is almost in trouble now, where people, they're just looking for that new and shiny, and they're not doing their due diligence, and they're not doing their research to work out whether it's actually going to be a good fit.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're there to provide a service for you. It's not about having fucking brand new equipment and like the drawing cards. Like, obviously that's clickbait stuff. That's stuff that will catch your eye when you look online. But it's not their service.
No.
Like, their service is the coaching, the programming. Like, it's going to be what they actually do on a day-to-day when you come in.
Yeah. And it's almost like you could almost get all that new and shiny for a lot more expensive price, put it on a loan and build it in your home gym. Have the awesome looking leg press, have the shiny Alico barbell, you know what I mean? Have all these awesome things, put it on a long-term loan, pay it off, slowly, and it'd be almost the same cost as your gym membership, you know what I mean? So it's like, if that's what you're looking for, cool. But okay, I guess here's another.
I'm not saying like don't upkeep equipment, but I mean like a little bit of rust on a barbell when the bearings are still fine, everything's looking out. Like you're talking about these barbells, when we buy them, they're like $800 each.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, if there's an expectation that every time the barbell gets some rust on it, all right, like, I'm sorry, but environmental factors, like just the amount of moisturizer that women wear, all right, when they come into the gym and it gets on the bar, like, it just corrodes them.
Yeah.
But it's like, it still performs its job. It's not unsafe. Like, we sanitize them, we look after them as much as we can, and when they break, you replace them.
Yeah.
But if we replace them every time they got like that, you're not paying $50 a week for a membership.
No.
You're paying $90 a week for a membership. But then the same person is going to complain about the fact that they're paying $90 for a membership.
Yeah.
But it's their behavior that's driving that.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think here's probably a cool concept to think about when it comes to what you want in a gym space is, okay, like, what am I looking to get out of this firstly? Like, am I looking at losing weight, gaining strength, becoming, a better human, leveling up my training, athletical performance, whatever. Then start to research what is going to get you there fastest? Because that's what people want, right? They obviously want the quick fix, but isn't it quicker to fix it if you go to someone who's more inclined to train you the better technique to get you into that position faster? They've got more experience. They have people who have proven to got there. There's an environment that builds that particular thing that you want. You know what I mean? If I want to go build strength, I'm not going to go to World's Gym. I'm going to go Brisbane Barbell, you know, and do powerlifting because they have a bunch of powerlifting athletes, some of the strongest athletes in Queensland going to that gym. If I want to build weightlifting, I go to Cougars, you know what I mean? It's simple. Like, these people specialize in it, but why is it that if you want to do weightlifting, you go to Worlds and sign up for hard work pays off? Like, that's not going to get you there the fastest. Like, unless Sonny Webster's at Worlds Gym and I haven't realized it yet, like, it's just not, it's not what you want, and it's not going to get you where you want fast. Like people want the quick fix, but then they choose the long option. They choose the cheap option that's shiny, but it has the, like, it's short term. It doesn't have the long term trajectory. Like, you know, a lot of people come here because they feel like they can't exceed or they can't gain more fitness from their current CrossFit box. So they see us as the next step, which is awesome. And we've only just realized as a business that that's what we're good at. Whereas before we were kind of trying to cater for the beginner and trying to help them. And people who come here can be beginners. They just level up a whole lot quicker. That's the thing. Like, if they sustain and stick through the hard times, they're standard raisers, because the bar is set so high. When they walk in and they can barely clean the bar and the workout of the day has 100 kilo cleans, they can either let that affect them or be like, damn, I want to be able to do that workout RX. That's like what we were talking about last week with Chris. I'm sure when Chris came in for his first CrossFit workout, he came to my box back in the day. I remember him coming in for a trial. Like, compared to what he is now, he was pretty hopeless. Like, and now he's kicking ass, you know what I mean? So it's like, but like, you wouldn't see that progression unless you sat there and thought about it. And even for people who have been coming for ages, like, just think about when you first started training. Like, I went back to see a video of me doing a push jerk. I've actually got it on an Instagram video, and like, I could barely lock out the bar. Like, 120 kilos, I caught it with my elbows bent, then I locked out. It looked horrible. And then I watch myself do a push jerk now at 100 kilos, perfectly locked out those elbows. Yeah, there's a little bit of a bend, but like, the technique has improved, and that's like a 6-year difference. Yeah, I'm not lifting more weight in video too, but my technique's hella better. Like, what do you want more? Like, and that's only coming from training around people who prioritize their technique and prioritize their movement standards.
Yeah, and we were talking, like, obviously tying that to the industry itself. It's like, there just needs to be more for all the coaches to be more direct. Like, where we just call it out for what it is. It's like, you're just not disciplined enough.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what we're going to help you with. We're going to help you be more disciplined. Like, the reason the other person gets to achieve what they want to achieve and you don't, is not because of genetics. Like, we keep throwing around, we talk about all these 1%ers. Like, they always become a topic of conversation. And what people don't realize is they just become an excuse.
Yeah.
And no one actually then makes any change.
Yeah.
As where they're irrelevant. Like, even if, yes, at the top end, the 1% will separate, right? But for most of the general population, it is literally just discipline. Like, it's just go to the gym 3 days a week. Like, you look at, there's a lot of push for people they train because they punish themselves, all right? So the calorie counting, we've already touched on this. But it's like, for every 1 day that you do cardio, you should do 3 days of strength. But where's that in recommendation by the government?
Yeah, it's like, walk for 30 minutes 3 days a week. I'm like, cool, that's good for you, right? And that's a good start, especially if you don't train at the moment. But how's that stressing you? How's that challenging you? Like, where's the part of the walking 30 minutes a day? Like, it gets to a certain point, like, we walk our entire freaking lives, unless you're like morbidly obese or you've never trained before in your entire life, and that's better than nothing. Awesome, start there. But when you get to a certain point where walking 30 minutes a day gets too easy, you're not going to be able to just keep increasing it. You can't be walking 4 hours a day. Like, you're going to have to start running or start, loaded walks or loaded marches. There's got to be a point where you start challenging yourself. Like, when you get promoted in your workplace, it doesn't get easier. It generally gets harder.
The entire point of life is progression.
Yeah.
Like, starting here as a baby who can't talk, can't walk, can't do shit. All right, like, and then you progress and you change. But like, the amount of people that just avoid it, where it's like, oh, well, I'm happy to just be where I am now. It's like, well, that's why things become hard.
Yeah.
Because we're not designed to be like that.
No, it's like, the human experience, like, before the world was all explored, people wanted to go out and explore the new lands. They wanted to put their name on it. But there's also that idea of ambition, like going out and doing what others haven't done, proving to them that there was a place out there that they hadn't seen before, potentially resources and people that they hadn't met. So it was like, but if they didn't do that, well, would we just be on a little island all together, like the entire human population in one space? Like maybe, but humans are naturally curious. Like they want to build and grow and learn.
Yeah,
so
and it's just interesting. Like you just watching the behavior shifts. Like we just went for a grant application where we're looking to expand the services we offer, and we want to try target some of the less privileged. So work a little bit more with NDIS, work a little bit more with aged care. Like we're very big on foresight. So for anyone listening, like we know that the next pandemic coming is not necessarily anything to do with the virus. Like it's most likely going to be to do with the fact that we have an aging population and we don't have enough workers coming through.
Yeah.
Right. So what's that going to look like? Well, that's going to look like the fact that nursing homes are going to be full, hospitals are going to struggle, we don't have enough nurses, we don't have enough carers coming through. Then we have to open up immigration, we're going to bring that in, that's going to cause an uproar anyway. And it's like the whole point of, so it's like, all right, well, let's fix the problem. How do we fix the problem? Make people more independent. So if people don't have to go to retirement homes because they're able to live a healthier life, because they look after themselves, like your health is your responsibility. It's only going to take away a lot of the stresses that are coming. They're not even interested in funding that. Like when I went through the application process, they're more interested in knowing whether you, like, what you identify as. Like it's all politicized at the moment, where it's like everyone's just talking about feelings and no one's actually fixing anything.
Yeah.
And it's just, at what point does that fall over?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that is not sustainable.
And that's what I mean, like and to solve the problem, like you said, like people go into nursing homes because they become unable to look after themselves. Things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's have been proven to accelerate if you don't have really good relationships and you're not fit and healthy. I'm not saying it doesn't happen anyway, but it accelerates.
Just stack your deck.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like no one's saying these things aren't going to happen. Like that's not what anyone's saying, but it is your responsibility to stack the deck in your favor. Yeah.
And actually, funnily enough, I had a conversation years ago with a guy who was talking to me about why he came to the gym. At the time, he was a pretty overweight fella. He was probably in his 50s. And he said to me, he's like, Tyler, he's like, you know why I come to the gym? And I was like, why is that? And he's like, because if I get to the point where someone's wiping my ass, he's like, I don't want to live anymore. He's like, I want to be able to wipe my ass when I'm 70. And that was what he was coming for, that longevity, which is what CrossFit was originally invented for. The methodology was to make sure that you kick ass in your 90s, be someone who is a go-getter, who can do all the stuff with their kids, their grandkids, their great-grandkids, and not have to be looked after or cared for by someone else. Some people aren't as lucky. They've had injuries or accidents or were born a certain way and they can't help that. That's fair enough. But for the majority of us, we weren't. We were born with every ability and opportunity that everyone else has had. And even if we think we're hard done by, it just means that we have more experience to fall back on, instead of to be upset that, my mum and dad weren't together for their entire life, or we grew up poorer than the family next to us. It doesn't mean shit as long as you apply some of that in a positive way. Like, no, I've gone through tougher times. This is nothing compared to what I've been through. Like, that rich person can't actually go back and be like, oh, I've been through this already. Like, no, I've gotten everything given to me, or I've always had it easy, or I've gone through life a little bit luckier than other people. They look at that and be grateful if they have the right mindset. So it's like two ways of thinking. Both of them allow you to progress unless you don't let it, unless you turn around.
You think about every strong person that you talk to, like I've had people say to me before, they're like, I don't understand how, they say, I don't understand how you're so mentally strong with things. And then a lot of the guys that I talk to that have helped me, you'll hear them say, life taught me. Right? And instead of my mind going like, oh shit, this person's just put together, I'm like, oh, life taught me. That means this person has been through fucking rock bottom.
Yeah.
Like they have had hardship just like everyone else. Like, what does that actually mean? That means that they've been through it.
Yeah.
Like, and on the other side of it, that's what it looks like.
And it's like the problem in the barrel methodology, where it's like, if you put all your problems in a barrel with everyone else's problems in the world, you would take yours back very quickly. Like there's always going to be someone out there who's had it harder than you and done more than you have. There's going to be someone was born more unlucky but achieved more than you could. And it's just like purely because like the only thing limiting you is your mindset. And that's what we're talking about with the industry stuff, is like, it's a mindset shift. It's like looking at the people that are coming up on your Instagram and Facebook and the gyms that you go to or the places that you see, and do you allow it to affect you in a negative or positive way? What do you take from that person? What lessons can you learn from? They might be the most negative person on the internet, like ranting about like a lot of bullshit, but you could still probably take something positive from that and use it or apply it into your own life if you listen to it carefully. Like there's just so many different ways that we can look at things. People just kind of get caught in that little kind of like
and it's
binoculars kind of methodology where they're just looking something and they're not looking at the the big picture. They're not detaching.
And my worry is always people becoming fragile. So it's like, what does this do? Like all these nice, sexy, shiny things, like the influencers where they're creating these fake personas, but then it's like the person gets up in the morning and now they don't look like that. Like, the filter's not on, all right? Or you had a night out, all right? Or you come in and let's say like the internet's down, you don't have the music, all right? Like now you're derailed. Like that discipline's not there because you learnt it in such a cushiony environment where you had 22-degree aircon, like you had all these artificial controls, right? All these nice to haves, but you're not resilient at all. And that's the whole point of it. The whole point of it is to become resilient, to become adaptable. And it's like, are we really creating that, or are we just creating a fragile society?
And we're just trying to cater for more and more fragile, not the more and more people who are looking for challenges and looking to put themselves in hard situations.
And and you can see it. The conversation is becoming like, you can't say that you're going to offend someone.
You can only take offense. You can't actually give it.
Why can't you have dialogue? Like dialogue is not offensive.
Yeah, it's what you take from that. Like if someone says something about your appearance or how you look, obviously tone is very important.
The best friend is the one who's going to tell you what you don't want to hear.
Yeah, they're going to be the asshole. They're going to be the one that's going to say, "Hey, you got something in your teeth. No one else has told you today."
Yeah. Hey, I don't like the way you acted.
Yeah, and it's
There's
like
nothing wrong with that.
And you might be hurt in the moment, and that's always okay. Like like you didn't realize that. Like that really sucks. And then it's like you turn around, like here's something. Like I sent Tamara my deadlift video. And she replied, "Your knees are a soft lockout. I would call it a no rep." And I sent it to her knowing that she would probably be looking for that. Because I've sent her a few in the past and she's also said the same thing. And in the moment, I was filled with rage. I was like, how dare she? Like, I didn't say any of this to her, but this is like over text message. I'm thinking about it, like, oh my God, like, what does she know? And then I just slow down and I'm like,
defensive, eh?
Yeah, it was just, that was the initial reaction. It was like defensive, like, I'm better than her, like, blah, blah, blah. But then I slowed down, I stopped, and I was like, but you sent it to her for a reason. And I was like, you needed this. Like, and I know for a fact, I'm like, okay, like, I have the opportunity now to respond. If it was in person, maybe the situation would have been different. Maybe I would have reacted poorly or got upset or got quiet or whatever it was. But I had the opportunity to, okay, like think about it. Like, was this actually the best outcome for this situation? And I was like, yes. Like she was the asshole. She was like, I'm not happy with that standard. I hold you to a higher standard. And I was like, good. Like, I should hold myself to a higher standard. And I said to her, thank you. Like, I appreciate that. Like, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to do more rack pulls. I'm going to do more bended kettlebell swings. Like, I'm going to work on my lockout for the deadlift. Like, or I could have been like, fuck you. Like, you don't know anything. Like, it was a choice in that moment. And I chose the latter. I chose the harder conversation. I chose to put myself in an uncomfortable position. Like, Renee sending you her videos the other week to critique. She's like, critique me. Like, have at it. You know what I mean? Like, whatever you're going to send her is going to be offending her in some way, shape, or form. But it's what she gets out of it. Like, she'll probably initially be like, oh.
Being vulnerable. She allowed herself to be vulnerable, and that allows her to grow.
Exactly. And that's the important thing. And this is what I was saying with the influencers. They're not allowing themselves to be
They're removing
vulnerable.
The vulnerability.
Yeah, the shit content, the weak lifts, the bad physique, they're removing that all. They're removing context. And that's unfortunately what people, like, they stick to. They stick to the context. They're like, he's always been big. He's always been strong. He's always been good at what he's done. they don't realize he started 12 years ago. They don't realize he's been on 6 cycles of anabolic steroids. So it's like, how can you compare that to yourself unless you see the start and finished product?
It's easy to make bad decisions with bad information, and that's all we're giving people.
Yeah.
Because we're removing context.
Exactly.
Being in a position of influence is about providing context and allowing people to make their own decision. Like, the point of this conversation, or even like this kind of dialogue where it's open-ended, is not for us to agree, and it's not for us to force people to agree with us. It's to provide them with information and our personal opinions based on our experiences, and up to them to make up their mind on what they want to do with that.
Exactly. And I think that's probably a good place to end.
I mean, us as a business, you think about it, like, we're not going to give you those comforts.
No.
Like, we've had a big chat about it. We are going to challenge you, and we're going to help you build discipline, and our goal is to make you resilient. So we aren't going to go and give you all these nice to haves.
Yeah, and we will have the pushback as well. We'll be there to push back on your reasoning of like, oh, like I can't run, or I can't do this, or this workout's impossible, or we push back. Well, no, it's not impossible. X, Y, and Z finished it. Like, no, you can run. Maybe like, or are you doing everything that's in your power to run? Like, are you working on your rehab, prehab? Have you seen someone about this injury that you supposedly have? It's like we believe you, but at the same time, like, if you're the same person who can't run 12 months time and you've done nothing about it, it's like, doesn't that fall on you? People don't take ownership. They're just like, oh, no, it's okay.
Questions are the answer, and if there's no questions being asked, no one cares.
Yeah, and that's what I find. The most curious people generally are the ones who improve the most, because they're willing to put themselves in vulnerable positions, asking questions that they may think are silly in terms, getting the answer quicker or getting the answer they want, whereas everyone's too scared to ask the questions. They don't want to look like an idiot in front of the coach, the class, whatever. For whatever reason, it's like a school habit, Teachers like, does anyone have any questions? And only maybe one kid raises their hands. And the question they ask, people might laugh at them. They might think they're stupid, but they're just trying to understand a little bit better what the teacher tried to say. And it's like, for some reason, that same method is applied to the CrossFit class. Does anyone have any questions about the workout today? No one raises their hand. Then someone comes up
and asks.
And they're confused. And I'm like, that's okay. Maybe they weren't willing to put themselves on the spot there. They still came and asked, but then someone does the wrong thing, doesn't ask any questions, and then they're like, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's like Chris said last week, having context of why we do things is so important, because then it makes him want to do it more, knowing that there's a benefit. So
definitely.
I think that's a good place to leave episode 39. I call this one Industry Baby, after Lil Nas X. So I think that's a good way to finish it. As always, if you like the podcast, be sure to share it. Subscribe to the Spotify if we can. Our subscribers actually getting higher. I think we're up to 61.
And as you can tell, we got up at midnight to record this one for you guys.
Yeah,
just couldn't sleep.
It is 12:01 a.m. Don't know what day it is though. That's how late it is.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but that's the podcast. We'll see you on episode 40 next week. 40. Oh, I'm hungry.
Me too, bro.
I didn't record that actually. Oh, it's 3:07. I need a shit.